Hello everyone, Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal. It is Tuesday. I hope the day is going well wherever you're watching or listening to this around the world. We're slowly edging our way into the big week of Champions League football, of course, kicking off tonight and got games tomorrow as well. So by Friday, I think it's Friday, we will know who Arsenal are going to be playing in the last 16. But for now, we can just sit back, put our feet up and enjoy the football over the next 48 hours, safe in the knowledge that Arsenal are already through into the round of 16. So, bit to talk about today. It's still quite quiet this week. Not really too much going on, which is a good thing, I suppose. We haven't had any injuries, any devastating injury news, which seems to be happening every single week at Arsenal at the moment. So, fingers crossed that continues, and it's a bit of a quiet week as we head towards the game against West Ham. Believe the press conference is going to be early afternoon on Friday at London Colney, although that hasn't been confirmed. We haven't been fully notified yet, but I think the plan is it's going to be Friday afternoon for that one. But still quite a bit to talk about today. Arsenal have been charged over that incident against Wolves for how they reacted to Michael Oliver's ridiculous red card to Myles Lewis-Skelly. So we're going to talk about that and the findings of that. Not a massive charge. Only got £65,000 fine for it, but it's more the sort of context behind it, really. I still think it's pretty flabbergasting that Arsenal have been fined, but it is what it is. So we're going to talk about that. I got loads and loads of reaction from you guys on what we were talking about yesterday about the Raheem Sterling situation and the decision facing Mikel Arteta this weekend for the game against West Ham in terms of what's he going to do. Does he stick? Does he give Sterling another game, or does he twist? Does he start with Marino after those 2 goals he scored off the bench at Leicester? Loads of reaction. Couldn't get all of it in, of course, but I have pulled quite a lot together. So we'll go through some of that. We're going to talk about Ethan Nwaneri. Arsene Wenger has been talking about Ethan Nwaneri as well. So plenty to get stuck into. We'll start with the news that Arsenal, as you can see if you're watching on YouTube by the headline here on the FA's website, have been sanctioned. So they announced yesterday that an independent regulatory commission has imposed a £65,000 fine on Arsenal in relation to the Premier League game against Wolves on Saturday, January 25th. Now, of course, this is in relation to the sending off of Myles Lewis-Skelly in that game when Michael Oliver sent him off for a straight red card, and Arsenal obviously were very angered by that decision and the players surrounded Michael Oliver and were complaining about it, asking him to go over and check on VAR and all that. And of course, the decision eventually got overturned. It was proved that it was an incorrect decision for Michael Oliver, but the FA still hit Arsenal with a charge for and it is how did they describe it? It was alleged that Arsenal failed to ensure their players did not behave in an improper way around the 43rd minute, and the club subsequently admitted this charge. So Arsenal did admit the charge. They didn't contest it, but they did argue their case and put forward some sort of mitigating circumstances for why the players did surround Michael Oliver. And I think we all know is very, very obvious why it is. So this is a sort of written reasons that were given for why Arsenal were ultimately charged. But before I get onto that, just Arsenal sort of they didn't go to the hearing. They submitted everything on paper, basically. I think obviously they admitted the charge. They knew they were going to get some sort of fine for this. So yes, Arsenal accepted in the written reasons they sent forward that Arsenal accepted that a number of its players spoke to the referee in the aftermath of the dismissal. The wrongful nature of the dismissal explains why Arsenal players justifiably wanted to speak to the referee and ask him to consider. The players were understandably emotional following the incident, which explains their actions. The Arsenal players were civil and not aggressive. They were not gesticulating or accusatory. They did not behave in a way that was offensive, violent, threatening, abusive, indecent, insulting, or provocative. The Arsenal players simply wanted the referee to reconsider the decision to find out what the outcome would be after a VAR review. Gabriel was the main representative, and for the most part, he had one hand placed behind his back in a non-aggressive stance. So yeah, these were loads and loads of reasons. Arsenal also wrote to the FA saying they'd worked hard to eliminate these issues and said they've been largely successful in that in the last 2 seasons, and the club is aware of its responsibilities to ensure that relevant players are spoken to in relation to the incident. So those are all the sort of things that Arsenal put forward in their defence for the hearing, for the regulatory commission. But the FA also put a load in themselves, talking about how long there was a long list of what the FA did, saying, let's have a look. I'll just run through a couple of them. So when the red card was shown, only 2 Arsenal players were in close proximity to the referee, none in his immediate vicinity, and then a large number of players travelled some distance to engage with the referee following the sending off. From the footage, one can clearly see the intensity of the protests made by Arsenal players. There were at times 9 Arsenal players in very close proximity to the referee. The caution administered by the referee did not end the misconduct as would it be expected. All this stuff. So this is what the FA said to the hearing, why they believed Arsenal should be charged. And so ultimately the commission came to their conclusion, and this is why they charged Arsenal. So if you're watching on screen, you can see it says the commission noted that it is important in this case not to conflate the decision of the referee to dismiss Lewis-Skelly and the subsequent overturning of that decision with the matter in hand. The case is simply concerned with the timely acceptance, or rather non-acceptance, of the Arsenal players of a decision made by the referee during a game. Football matches are invariably peppered with controversial refereeing decisions, and it is incumbent upon football clubs to make sure their players accept those decisions, even when the players vehemently believe that a mistake has been made by the referee. As such, the commission did not consider the correctness of the referee's decision to send off Myles Lewis-Skelly as having been relevant consideration in the terms of mitigation, which of course is utter rubbish. Look, Arsenal, ultimately they broke the rules in terms of what they did, but the fact that you can't take into account what happened, and as this explanation down that says that the commission did not consider the correctness of the referee's decision to send off as being relevant, of course it was relevant. Arsenal wouldn't have had all their players around the referee if their horrendously wrong decision had not been made on the field. And they all knew it was a terrible decision. Everyone in the stands, everyone in the crowd, everyone within eye distance, anyone who could see it knew that Michael Oliver made a horrendous mistake in that moment. It's very hard for players not to go and surround the referee in that point and say, what's going on? Why have you done it? I mean, how can that not happen? Of course it's going to happen. So I'm not going to say it. It's spilt milk now. It's done, isn't it? There's no point revisiting all again in terms of how I felt about the incident and everything like that. But I just think it's pretty mad that they can't take into consideration the fact that the decision was wrong. Because of course you have to take it into consideration. It's that the whole incident revolves around the fact that a dreadfully wrong refereeing decision had been made and subsequently had been proven to be wrong because it was overturned and Lewis-Skelly wasn't banned anymore. So yeah, it's a mad one. It is a mad one, but it is what it is. 65 grand in the grand scheme of things is not going to cost Arsenal too much. Obviously, that's a fine they can comfortably pay. They should really have only been fined 20 grand on it. But they that was the sort of the usual fine for that. But the commission did fine them more for it. I think it was mainly because it was such a kind of high profile. I think I've got a few things here in why they just came to their decision. If you want to read them, they're on screen there. It said from start to finish, they're protesting the decision for around 2 minutes and 15 seconds. The forceful nature of the protests, the fact that Arsenal players persisted with their protests well after the referee cautioned one of the Arsenal players. So those are just some of the reasons. Yeah, but as I said, the fact that Arsenal accepted the charge, they didn't bother to really argue their case. They obviously knew there was coming. They weren't going to change the FA's mind or the independent commission's mind. I think they knew because of the high nature of sort of high profile of it all that they were going to get caught. They were going to get hit with something. And look, the FA have got their way, haven't they? Arsenal had a bit of a slap on the wrist. They didn't get away scot-free, which I'm sure PGMOL would be demanding that did not happen. And the FA and PGMOL have got their case. They managed to get a little chunk out of Arsenal in that case. Right, moving on. Saka Martinelli on target to potentially be back after international break. So that first game is, I've forgotten who it's against now. It's on April the 1st. After the international break, so Tuesday is a midweek game, and that is the sort of target for the pair of them, which would be great. Obviously, I think there's about 4 more Premier League games to go between now and then. There's 2 games in the Champions League as well. It'd be so great if Arsenal can just find a way to do what they did against Leicester every single week between now and the international break until these 2 come back. It'd be a huge boost because they'll be a hell of a lot stronger after that. Martinelli would be an option as a central forward as well. Which would be a big thing. It gives you another option to play there. So, yeah, good news. Fingers crossed. Obviously, long way to go yet. And especially in Saka's case, you've got to tread carefully after such a big sort of surgery that he's gone through. But if they could be back for those games after the international break, then, and Arsenal are still in touching distance and through sort of quarterfinals of the Champions League, then, yeah, it'll be a hell of a lot of a massive boost for Arteta and for the squad going into that final charge of the season. Right, just moving on to Ethan Nwaneri now. Arsene Wenger has been talking about Ethan Nwaneri, and there's no better player, no better manager when it comes to dealing with young players than Arsene Wenger, of course. And he was talking on Behind Sports. He was asked about the sort of comparisons between Cesc and Ethan. Obviously, Cesc came through when he was similar age to Ethan as well. And Arsene said Nwaneri is more a creator through his final ball, his dribbling, and the quality of his passing. Of course, Fabregas was very strong mentally, but this boy looks that as well. And when I look at him, his maturity, it's difficult for me to think he's just 17 years old. The sign of a special talent is that he is ready early. And he's such a special talent, Ethan Nwaneri. I mean, that game against Leicester, I think what made it even more impressive, especially in that first half, was that Arsenal was so poor. Everyone else was so poor. And then yet you had this 17-year-old taking a game by a scruff of the neck when everyone around him was really, really struggling. So it's not just that he plays well when everyone around him playing well. When everyone around him is playing poorly, he still plays well. He still looks like the man who's going to make a difference. I say man, a boy who's going to make a difference for the team. And that's, it's just such a special thing to have and a special attribute to have. Nothing phases him. Nothing has phased him yet. He looks perfectly at home in these surroundings. He looks like he belongs in these surroundings. So it's going to be interesting, really intriguing what happens when Saka comes back. Because what do you do then? Can you need to surely have Ethan Nwaneri in this team. So what? I mean, it's going to be a big decision for Arteta. What does he do? I mean, Saka obviously is going to come back and play on the right-hand side. There's no way that doesn't happen. But then where do you play Nwaneri? Do you just leave him on the bench and rotate him with Saka? Or do you move him, find a way to play him? Can you play him into the Odegaard role? Can you move Odegaard over to that left 8 role? At times, have the two of them working together behind a forward? Do you play Ethan as the forward? You want him on the pitch. You think Arsenal will be so much stronger as an attacking sense if you've got Saka, Odegaard, Nwaneri all on the pitch together. It's going to just be a hell of a lot more threat in that team than if one of them sitting on the substitutes bench. Obviously, you need to balance it out and not go too attacking and leave yourself short defensively. So it's going to be a really interesting talking point when Saka does come back. It's great now that Ethan's doing what he's doing and stepping into the void left by Saka and giving Arsenal a real threat on that right-hand side. But when Saka's back, what do you do then? That's definitely something I know full well we're going to end up debating on this channel a lot as we get closer to Saka coming back. Because Ethan Nwaneri, how do you leave him out of this side at the moment? It's a real tough one. It's one that Arteta's going to have to work out what to do. Right, let's move on to Sterling. I've got lots of these, so I'm going to flick through them quite quickly. And yeah, this is interesting. It's just such a wide range of opinion of what the best thing to do with Sterling is. Obviously, I was talking about it yesterday. It's like, do you leave him in for another game to sort of protect his confidence, or do you leave him in another game so you've got Merino as that sort of impact player off the bench? Would Merino be able to do the same sort of thing if he started, or would it be easier for West Ham to deal with him if he started? I don't know. I'm not giving an opinion on it. I was just sort of voicing the different things sort of facing Arteta when he makes his decision. Ash has got in touch, says, I understand we want to protect what is left of Sterling's confidence, but I think the needs of the team should be prioritised over the needs of a player. Rather than seeing it as dropping Sterling, I think we need to see it as rewarding Merino's performance. He's not a 9, and yes, that Leicester cameo may have been fortuitous, but to me, it makes sense to ride the wave for as long as possible. That streak of form might end against West Ham at home, but just equally might not. This could be a purple patch. We need to fill the gap at least until Martinelli is back. It's not a centre forward, but both Leo and Nwaneri are excellent creators, so stick any half-decent finisher in the middle of them, and they have a shot, especially at the Emirates. Mikel, centre forward, is my shout. Non-flying Iceman says, as you stated, can't leave him out unless we are ready to finish with Sterling, and we need him to play more minutes. I'm wondering as he was so toothless on the left and Trossard was better out there, maybe we can put Sterling up top in false 9 to keep Trossard wide and Nwaneri right. Give Sterling 30 minutes all the first half to do something, keep Merino fresh and come on again if we aren't winning and in control. It also means we have a potential threat off the bench rather than just defensive options and untried youth. Then if Sterling doesn't do anything versus West Ham, don't start him anymore. I've already put Ashes in twice there. Johnny says, totally agree, Charles. Keep Merino as an impact player from the bench. I didn't say that's what Arsenal should do. I was just raising that as a possibility. Desperate times called for playing Sterling. As bad as it is, take him out of the squad and it's worse. Play and pray. We need Sterling miracle, as in we need a player desperately struggling for form to find some. If he flops again, Merino is the only plan B. Imagine having to bring Sterling off the bench to make an impact. Edwin says, I'd rather have Tierney on the left than Sterling. At least he'll keep possession and put some crosses in. Playing Sterling is tantamount to playing with 10 men, plus the frustration he brings to the teammates and to the fans. Chengi says the same support that was given to Havertz should be afforded to Sterling. Form is temporary. Carlo says, I think we should play the same 11 against West Ham. Sterling is not the Sterling of old, but I still think he can contribute, give him a run of games and keep Merino as the option off the bench. Tyler says, I see the point of preferring to start Sterling since Merino has a better chance of being a game changer, but why not start Trossard on the left and Merino through the middle? That puts Trossard in his most effective position and gives us much more height in the front line. Sterling could perhaps be as effective off the bench as a late sub against tired legs. Mr. Kleiman says, hey, Charles, keep up the good work. Thank you. Regarding Sterling, I would try him centrally. Out wide doesn't work, and Trossard through the middle doesn't highlight his qualities. Having two players not playing well hurts us. So I'd rather have Trossard on the left and Sterling in the middle. That way, if Sterling doesn't improve, at least Trossard will. What do you think? I think it's an interesting one, Sterling through the middle. I don't think I'd want to do that from the start. I have to say, maybe in a game, half an hour to go, that's an option. I don't think I'd want to do it from the start, especially against a team like West Ham. Nkog says, sorry, usually your observations are on spot on, but today maybe not. To say we can't start Merino because we need a plan B is mad. By that logic, we'd never start our best players because, that will mean they can't come on for the second half should we need to mix things up. I didn't say we can't start him. I was just raising the sort of possibility of why the things that Mikel Arteta is going to have to be thinking about when he's choosing his team and his substitutes. I wasn't saying he can't start. Of course, I'm not saying that. Again, I was just throwing the different things out there in terms of what Arteta is going to have to consider. And Cogs continues and says, I've rewatched the second half of Leicester game twice now. Marino's movements towards the goal, the way he situates himself around defenders and his reading of the angle of potential incoming crosses were brilliant. Yes, we do not know how he'd last over the course of a full 90 minutes against better defensive, but the only way to find out is to give him the opportunity. Also, he fits a whole lot better into our pressing schemes than Raheem Sterling, which will benefit the team. As far as plan Bs, trust Arteta. He's got a full week of training to figure this out. Until last week, none of us would have considered Merino up top. And finally, Gerald says, you had me screaming at my phone with this one, Charles. Under no circumstances should Sterling start. His contribution wasn't just non-existent. It was, in fact, negative, given how much he got caught offside, breaking up our play. Merino needs to be given the whole game to feel out the position. Get Alan Smith on the training pitch to give him some big man forward playing tips and let him loose on defences. I'm not just jumping on the bandwagon. I had him up front even before the Leicester game. So loads and loads of reaction. There was so many more. I couldn't bring them all in because I've been talking about it for hours. But yeah, just again to point out, as you guys are saying, I was not saying that he can't start Merino and then that Sterling has to. I was just saying things that Arteta's going to have to think about. And there are plenty in terms of, you do have to think about what you've got on the bench in these games. That is, what does Arteta call them? He calls them I've forgotten what he calls his subs now. They're not subs, are they? They're impactors. Players who can come on and change the game. And Marino certainly proved he could do that with the game against Leicester. So maybe that will be in Arteta's mind when he's thinking about it. I'm not giving my opinion on what it is. I'm just trying to think what Arteta's going to have to consider. I would start Merino in this game. I think you have to. I think Sterling's performance was so ineffective that I just struggle to see how you can start the second game in a row after that. And I think, as people have pointed out, you have to reward Merino for what he did at the weekend. It might not work. It might be completely different. It is ultimately a midfielder playing as a central striker. What happened against Leicester is not going to happen every single game. And if it doesn't work, then you have to try and work out what you do. As you said, you've got a whole week to think about it on the training pitch right now. But I would start Merino. I just think you kind of got to in that situation. You've got to reward him for what he did against Leicester and see if he can do it again. So, yeah, that's it. Thank you very much for sending in all of that reaction. Like I said, there was loads more. If you want to read through it, you can find it into yesterday's video. Go through all the comments. Loads of great debate in terms of what Arteta should do for that game against West Ham. And that's it from me today, everyone. Thank you very much for your time. As always, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I'll be back tomorrow to do it all over again. Anything you want me to discuss in that show, any questions you want to ask, get them in right now under here in the comments, and I'll pull some of them together and get them included in the show. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.